And we're here at downtown Detroit at Detroit Seafood Market. We're joined by a roundtable discussion with Allison Vaughn, founder and CEO, Jackets for Jobs. We also have Miss Alexis Kerr, Shining Diamond Productions, and then Dr. Rose Moten, author and clinical psychologist. Thanks for joining me, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
We are talking today about being a female entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur. Let's talk about the decision, first of all, to be an entrepreneur. What's that like? When do you make that decision? How do you know that's what you want to do?
Well, I guess I can chime in. Well, for me, it was God-given. I just got the word from the Lord to start a business, but not knowing when you're an entrepreneur, as you know, it's a lot harder than when you work for someone. Absolutely. So it's no 40-hour a week. It's like 80. You work twice as hard when you own your own business. Would you agree, ladies?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was passion. I love people. I love relationships. And for me, I'm a second-generation business owner. My parents had a successful business in Augusta, Georgia. So I grew up around entrepreneurship. They had 2 stores, and then they also had contracts with the government. So we traveled, we worked. It was just who I was. It was just about finding the right time for me and what industry did I want to go into.
Excellent. Yeah.
Similar story, passion for what I do, but also the desire to call your own shots.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it.
That's the desire to call your own shots when you have worked for corporate America or for a business, and as Allison says, you put in a typical 40-hour a week, and you're still doing your best. For those who are passionate about what you do, regardless if you're working for yourself or a corporation, you're going to put your best effort into the work that you do. Then it came a time said, I'm doing all this work, you know, getting all the credit for this organization, but it's time to put this work and these hours in for myself.
Exactly. I totally agree. Yeah, when you work for yourself, I think more the sky's the limit for you, whereas when you work for a corporation, then you have that glass ceiling, and then you kind of have to work with the good old boy network and so forth. So when you're by yourself independent, it's a little different.
Let's talk about that good old boy network. Does that still exist?
That's a good, for me, I'm in between both. So I still work in corporate America in the automotive industry, but then I do have my own jewelry and accessories business as well as production company. And of course in production, there are not a lot of females in that business. And so you just have to continuously strive for, 1, I think it's excellence. 2, you have to have really good relationships with your team and also foster great relationships. And 3, when you call your own shots and you're the boss, there's also consequences. So you have to be able to deal with, for me, consequences of making a decision and be comfortable with it.
That good old boy network, does it still exist though?
Absolutely. It does. I know for my field, a little different. You know, I'm a clinical psychologist, so it requires licensure to do what I do. You know, so you have to pass state boards and do things of that sort. However, traditionally, psychology was a male-dominated and white male-dominated industry. And it's just within the last couple of decades, it's been a flip. So in the 1960s, 70s, 30% of people graduating with PhDs in psychology were women. Now it's 70% are women.
Wow. So
it's totally inverted. But with that, what we found is that a lot of the organizations, when you work for individual organizations, the pay scale has declined in, you know, relation to inflation, which is an indication that that still exists, you know, the inequality of wages for women. And that's another factor that prompted me to, hey, you know, go out on your own. Go out on your own, set your own bar, set your own standards, your pay scale. And basically, I'm sure these women can attest to it, your skill is going to speak for itself.
Absolutely. Talk about that culture and what it's like being an entrepreneur and working in you're ripping and running from place to place, you're going to meetings, you know what you represent when you walk in a room.
And I think you have to do it in something that you're very passionate about. If you're doing it for money, if you're doing it for fame, if you're doing it just because you're doing it, you won't be successful. So many small businesses, many entrepreneurs start and many end or fail. And I think the success for me, I've been in business for 5 years, the success for me and long-term contracts and relationships has been because this is very natural. This is who I am. This is what I love. This is what I enjoy. So I may work 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, but then I can get off and work another 6 to 8 hours for myself. I work weekends, I work holidays, but it's what I'm passionate about. And when you're passionate about, you can engage people around you, and so you can ignite them to follow your dreams with you, and it's a win-win situation.
They're going to see that passion.
Right, And I've been in my industry for 12 years. I founded Jackets for Jobs 12 years ago. So, and with the nonprofit, it's all about networking because you want people to, understand your mission. And so our mission is to empower men and women to enter into the workforce. So we're just educating people, like, support what we're doing. So I'm always out and about, going around in the community, telling people about what we do. So it's a lot of events to go to, a lot of networking to attend. So it's really something.
Yeah, are there some downsides to the whole entrepreneurial side in terms of culture and?
Well, the fallacy that I think exists out there, and I think Allison touched on it, is that people say, I want to be an entrepreneur because it's going to be easier.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Right.
You don't go into entrepreneurship because you figure you're going to have an easier time at work. You go into it because you're passionate about it, as Alexis said. Because oftentimes 10 hours, 12-hour days become the norm.
Sure.
And I think all of us, we were discussing before the show came on, just all the different schedules and appointments we have after we finish this interview.
Absolutely.
Because it's an ongoing process. But if the passion is there, the fulfillment by far just takes care and alleviates any of that tiredness you may feel because you're putting in such long hours.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off the Dr. Rose, I think one of the biggest things that people do is they say I want to be an entrepreneur, and what does that really mean? They don't really understand what that means. I may be a subject matter expert as an engineer or computer scientist, but when I'm an entrepreneur, that means I've got to be good at finance, good at sales, good at marketing, good at networking. And so you have to be a subject matter expert in all of the facets of the business. And the problem or the fallacy with it is that people know great engineering, I'm a great in marketing, and then what about these other 10 aspects of the business that make it successful? And so just because you're good at one aspect of business, or just because you're a great networker, does not mean you're going to be a great small business owner or a great entrepreneur. It just does not mean that. You have to foster relationships, you have to find subject matter experts in all of those areas for you to be a success. And those people have to get behind you, and you may or may not have budget for that. And so that's, something that's really, really big when you think about it's your business, it's you, and you're the one, not only the face of the organization, but you're also funding.
And so is it a matter of then building a team? How do you sustain? How do you keep your business going? Is it building a team? Is it just juggling all of those balls and kind of keep moving, or what?
That's how you fail. Like trying to juggle all the balls. You will fail each and every time. You have to have a team.
Definitely you have to have a support team. I definitely believe that you have to have a team because, as you said, you wear so many hats, and so you want to have a small support team that's going to embrace what you're doing, and really see the vision that you have.
Okay.
And then you also have to me, the first layer of entrepreneurship is understanding yourself, your skill sets, your weaknesses, your strengths, and who you are, because that's what's going to empower your team, whether it be a nonprofit and you're empowering the board, whether it be your own practice, you have to empower your staff. They have to treat the patients just as well as you would. So to me, that's the fundamental essence, who you are and what you bring to the table, and then all of your weak areas or areas that you may need some help, you have to find
See, now all of those things are germane to any entrepreneur, though. So I guess what I want to get to is, are there some things that relate to you as a woman that are slightly different from the norm? Because we're talking about generations, we're talking about gender basis.
Yes. Well, I guess to go back with what I expressed, how traditionally it was such a male-dominated field that when you're dealing with male clients, okay, or you're dealing with people who traditionally are used to that Sigmund Freud look of therapists, those are barriers you have to overcome. And what I've learned over the years, I've been doing this now for 14 years, is that, again, your skill set will speak for itself, because people will, and I've had the experience where people come in. So 14 years ago I started this, and I look 14 years younger, so people are like, first of all, there was the age bias, then it could have been a cultural bias, then you have the gender bias. So those are three things that you're juggling all at once. But I've never had an issue with a person who walked away from me or figured, oh, she's, you know, I can't learn anything, she can't help me, she can't help me improve my life because I was skilled and licensed in what I did. And I understood that with the person coming in, and I understood early on through experience that this was an issue I'm going to have to deal with, even if it's unspoken, because most people aren't going to come to you and say, you're a woman, you know, you can't help me because I'm a man and you don't understand my problems. So really being able to understand and pick up on that and ease your clients' concerns in regards to that makes a huge difference.
And one thing I think is that we are who we are. So, you know, for me, when I walk into a room, nothing about me and who I am, I'm going to be able to change. And so I think you have to be just comfortable with that. You have to be confident in your skills. And I think one of the things that I found is that you have to have a mentor who keeps you encouraged. I think the world can be discouraging, business can be discouraging, and being an entrepreneur can be even more discouraging. So one, I think a mentor is totally essential. Someone who lifts you up when you get kicked down, because you will get kicked down. And then the second thing is just, it's okay to hear no. It has to be okay to hear no. And a lot of times, if you personally have issues with rejection, if you have some personal conflict within yourself, you have to remove all of that, because this is business. It is strictly black and white. It's the numbers game, and you have to be comfortable with that.
Fantastic.
That's a good point.
And that's a stereotype with women in business, because we are the more emotional creature. Okay, so it's a stereotype that we're going to. You remember when Hillary was running for president, and there was that joke out, you know, I hope she doesn't have PMS and, you know, has to make a decision on the safety of the world. You know, so that's something that even as entrepreneurs, we've proven ourselves in the workplace, but we're still looked upon as these emotional creatures, and these, and that has to be just an issue that we're aware of as well. And I know I can speak for myself, and I don't know how these ladies feel about it. It always, if I'm watching an episode of The Apprentice, and
that's my favorite show. I love The Apprentice. Well, two reasons: because I watch their business skills, but because Donald Trump has actually donated to Jackets for Jobs, and the cast members from season 1, 2, and 3 gave a charity benefit for Jackets for Jobs.
Really?
Yeah, they did. So I love that show. But go back to your point.
But my point being, if there's a woman, I know, great plug. But if there's a woman contestant on the show and there's an emotional breakdown, it's played up. It's played up. And as a woman, it's kind of like you watch and you're like, oh, this is going to feed into that stereotype, which we have worked hard to destroy. You know, we accept. I'm a psychologist, so it's all about emotions, right? So we accept that part of ourselves, but we can still be dynamic business owners and very decisive individuals despite our
emotional side. And it's okay to be emotional, but that doesn't mean you're going to get on TV and cry, or that doesn't mean you're in the midst of a big business decision and you fall apart. I mean, you can be definitely definitive, concise, and professional in the way that we deal in business, and you have to be. You know, it's not an option.
Well, for me, being emotional for me is a good thing, because I'm in a nonprofit and I'm tugging on people's emotion to hear this is our mission. You know, you have to help that woman that is homeless, or the woman that doesn't have a car and has got 3 kids. So my job is pulling on people's emotion to try to get them to buy into what we're trying to do. So for me, that a little bit is a plus.
But like what was pointed out, it doesn't mean that you can't be professional and make decisive decisions. Well, ladies, I appreciate you sharing your insight that hopefully will help someone out there, and we'll keep looking for you all in the newspapers and the magazines and on television, sharing your gifts. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having us.
Okay.